Hey soldiers, today we're going to talk about the relationship between weapon manufacturers and game publishers and how EA is treading into some dangerous territory. So copyrights are a tricky thing these days, especially coming into the digital era. You know, a lot of copyright laws don't always translate correctly. We don't know how to go about them. And you see a lot of interesting things happen during this kind of transition. And we're seeing it a lot with games right now, especially when it comes to using different weapons. So instead of having an ACR, you have an ACWR. It makes me laugh every time someone says, "Oh, I'd love to own an ACWR in real life." And it's like, really? You know, instead of the H&K 416, it's called the M416. Instead of this, it's called that. Instead of having these qualities, it has these qualities. And it's because it seems like a lot of developers and publishers, probably by the publisher's guidance, let me turn that off, have been changing things up on weapons because they're tiptoeing. Because we've seen lawsuits in the past from manufacturers that don't like certain products using their product in a certain light. And there's been some copyright violations, or at least what the weapon manufacturers perceive as copyright violations, and they go to court, which we all know is very costly. So as a result, a lot of these developers have done different things to mitigate that risk. They've changed names, they've changed qualities of weapons to where there can be plausible deniability. But they've also done things to develop a relationship with these manufacturers to say, you know, hey, we don't want to go to court. We want to use your product. We want to use it in a positive light, but we don't want to be accused of anything having to do with copyright violations. We've seen it with Remington. Remington has a very good relationship with a lot of different publishers saying, hey, you can use our name. I don't know the stipulations of that. I don't know. Got him with the smoke. I don't know if it requires some type of monetary effort on the publisher's part in order to use the Remington name. I assume not, because so many publishers do. I mean, Activision and EA, pretty much all of their products are able to use Remington's name, it seems like, without worry. We see the same with H&K. I mean, Medal of Honor did the biggest job of working with manufacturers than any other game I've seen. I mean, they work with manufacturers that we haven't even heard of before, and I think it was because those smaller manufacturers were more willing to work with them, like LaRue. Not many people have even heard of LaRue before Medal of Honor came out. And they're this small weapons manufacturer that develops AR-10s and AR-15s in Texas. So I thought that was really interesting. And the same with Daniel's Defense. Now, Daniel's Defense is much larger than LaRue, but Medal of Honor made that relationship with them. And I'm assuming the relationship included a contract, included some type of give and take. And usually the give and take is money. Now, I've always been an advocate that the give and take is organic. Each party naturally benefits from this relationship. The publisher and the developer get to use more accurate depictions of modern weapons, which makes the game more authentic and more fun, if you ask me, for at least for people like me who have a passion and a hobby for both firearms and games. I think anybody can appreciate a certain level of authenticity in the representation of these weapons. So the game developer and the publisher definitely benefit from this relationship, and I think the manufacturer benefits from this relationship because it spreads their name and their brand and brings more awareness, maybe opens up a new demographic for them. I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about, you know, people my age, people in their early to mid to late 20s and 30s and 40s who maybe get exposed to a certain manufacturer a little bit more because they play games as well. I think it's a win-win. Now, I also understand that these publishers have so much other stuff to worry about. They don't want to worry themselves with the prospect of getting sued over the name of a weapon when it's so easy to just change the name or just change a certain aspect of the design of the weapon and just lose that risk entirely. And up until now, EA has done a little bit of both. They've worked a little bit with the manufacturers, and they've put a lot of effort into getting licensing deals with these manufacturers. We've seen it a lot with Medal of Honor. We've seen it a lot with Battlefield 3. And they also have gone the other route and kind of changed things up on certain weapons that they can't make that relationship with. Well, now they're taking a complete 180, and they're saying, you know what? we're not going to get licensing deals anymore. When you read a book and they freely use the names of these manufacturers like Colt and H&K and FN Herstal, those guys don't get sued because they're telling a story. It's fiction. And it's obviously fiction. It's a fiction book, and they're able to give their own perspective on it, and they're allowed to do that. When you watch a movie, it's the same thing. They can mention certain names. They can represent certain weapons, and they don't go get licensing deals with these manufacturers. And it doesn't even have to be fiction. It's with nonfiction as well. When you read the book No Easy Day from the Navy SEAL who contributed to the death of Osama bin Laden. He was on the SEAL Team 6. He talks about what weapons he used in great detail, exquisite detail, pictures and everything, showing his loadout. And I'm sure that he didn't think about going to H&K to get a licensing deal and pay H&K in some way or split his revenue in some way just to mention their name. And this is a big deal on EA's part. I mean, this is the first step a publisher has taken like this. Every other publisher, every other developer, like I said, they've tiptoed. They've kind of wondered, can we do this? Maybe we should be careful about this because there could be a lawsuit. And whether you win a lawsuit or not, it's expensive. And I'm not sure whether to applaud EA or call them stupid for being the first ones to say we're not going to sign contracts with weapon manufacturers for a license to use their guns in our games, and we're not going to replace them with false names and false representations. No, we're going to do it actually very accurately. They're standing their ground. They're saying that they're asserting their constitutional free speech right to use trademarks without permission, and that it falls under the fair use principle. We got our lawyers. We're ready for you. Come at us if you got a problem. And this is really out of character coming from EA. These guys tiptoe when it comes to problems in the press, in the media, with anybody. We've seen it so much with Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor 2010, they pulled games off the shelves because you could play the Taliban as one of the multiplayer factions. And they got in trouble with Gold Star Mothers, and they didn't want the bad press. With Medal of Honor Warfighter, Danger Close, the developer on that game, made a lot of relationships with different manufacturers, like I've mentioned with LaRue and Daniel's Defense, but there were a lot more that got abandoned by EA. And before, I thought it was because they thought they were crossing some line between real weapons and video games, and they didn't want to get bad press for that. When now I'm starting to think it's because those contracts were costing them entirely too much money to be cost effective. So while I applaud EA for seeing the importance in depicting these weapons accurately, for seeing how much better it makes the game, how much people appreciate and enjoy it, while I like that they see that, I worry about their methods. I worry that they're going about this in the wrong way, and I may be wrong, but I worry that they're doing it for financial reasons and not so much to be a moral leader, to be the first to step up because it's the right thing to do. Because these manufacturers, they do have a legal basis. And we've seen it happen before, not with weapons manufacturers, particularly with EA, but Bell Helicopter, which is a company that develops different aircrafts. They sent a cease and desist letter to Battlefield 3 based off of one of the depictions of their vehicles in the game. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily suing them. It's like they're sending an official letter made by their lawyers saying, fucking stop it. We don't like you using our particular vehicles in your game. We don't like it. Don't use it. Stop it. And part of me is a little split here. I'm not sure what to believe in this particular situation. Yes, I'm all for free speech and practicing your right to use trademarks and the fair use principle. I'm all for that. I understand that. I'm with it. But at the same time, these games can damage a brand in some way. I can see the potential in that. For example, in Battlefield 4, if they use the name H&K 416 and depict the weapon exactly as it is in real life, there's no escaping the fact that this is the H&K 416 in the game, and it turns out to be the worst weapon. I mean, this weapon fucking sucks in Battlefield 4. It could do a little to damage the brand. I mean, yes, we're talking about a game here, but games are quickly becoming the largest entertainment product out there. When you think of Call of Duty, it makes more money than any other entertainment product out there. Let's be optimistic with Battlefield 4 and say that it's just as successful as Call of Duty. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people talking about how much the H&K 416 sucks balls with no context as to whether they're talking about the game or not. It could damage the brand in the same way that it can add a reputation to a brand and increase a brand's image. And for the same reason, if a weapon is really good in the game, look at the KSG or the Remington 870 in Black Ops 2. I think it's done quite a bit to increase the reputation of both brands, both Kel-Tec and Remington. Yes, we're talking about a game, but lots of people play video games, including these manufacturers' demographic. So let me know what you guys think. Should a publisher have to go to a weapons manufacturer to acquire a license to use their trademarked name, or does the fair use principle apply here? Let me know in the comment section, but that's all I have for this video. This is Sergeant Merrill, out here.